Hi, this is Gail Davis with the Endless Mountains Empowerment Summit, 21 days of virtual empowerment coming to you. We are doing a part two. I am thrilled to have a panel of female entrepreneurs, and today's topic is best practices for success. And we have some topics we're going to discuss today, but this is segueing into part one. So if you haven't watched part one, go back and watch part one on mindset and your attitude and how to really be successful. Part two now is the path to success. And the first question I wanted to throw our panel of entrepreneurs is, talk to us about finances. How do you not go broke as you're venturing out to become an entrepreneur? And the first person I'd like to highlight is Dana Wolfe, who is a financial coach who has just started her own financial coaching business. Dana, tell us all the ins and outs. How do you stay frugal, tap into freebies, and watch your finances?
Well, I think that when you're starting your business, you first off need to have a strong financial plan. What you're willing to invest into the business, what you're looking to hope, on the financial side of things, what you're hoping that your business is going to grow into, how much time you're going to put into it, and how much money you're going to put into it. And you need to be able to have this plan, take a look at it, maybe have somebody else take a second look to see if you're missing anything, but know all of the four corners of the square, exactly everything that you're going to need to put into it financially, and what you're going to do, how you're going to work it. When you're thinking about launching your business and you're thinking about advertising, free obviously is best. You don't want to go overboard with, getting t-shirts and hats and magnets and passing things out and not getting anything back in return. A lot of times the best form of advertising is just word of mouth and having somebody that is saying, hey, I know this person that can. Also, there's Facebook, there's a lot of social media outlets that are out there. You can Twitter, and you can put up a Facebook page. Again, word of mouth, I think, is the best way of getting your business going. Advertising, look at your local advertising. A lot of small towns will have their own local newspaper where, what's happening in the town, where you can say that, hey, I've launched a new business and this is what I'm doing, and you can get some free advertising that way. What was the other questions, Gail? Sorry about that.
Oh, you're doing good. While you're on a roll here, talk to us about treating your business like a business and not a hobby.
Well, and that's an important, there's two really important key pieces for me in that. The first, when it comes to the financial side of things, treat it like a business. Only spend what you need to spend in order to keep it growing. You don't want to spend just to stay in business. That becomes a hobby. But if you are treating it like a business financially, and then you also treat it like a business physically. You show up to work. These are your work hours. Everybody in the house knows that you're not going to be doing the laundry between 9 and 12 because those are my work hours, and I'm going to be in my office during those hours. So you actually, show up for work. Don't show up in your pajamas because you're not going to get as much done, but show up for work, especially if you're working from home. But treat it like a business, treat it like a job. This is the reality. This is, getting up every day and going into your office, whether it's at home or it's outside of the home. This is your business. And so treat it with respect, and respect yourself as well. When you're setting your prices, if you're doing, regardless of whether you own your own business and you're producing a product, or you're serving somebody through your own one-on-one coaching, you have to respect yourself and set the prices that show respect. If you give everything away for free, no, there's no value to it. And so you need to have that value assigned to what you're able to give your clients, your customers.
Dana, you have given us so much information here. This is great. So treat it like a business, not a hobby. Don't underestimate your value. But let's for a moment go back to tax benefits of being an entrepreneur. you know a little bit about, and I don't want to quote you on it, I'm not going to say, but Dana Wolfe told me this if I'm audited by the IRS, but are there benefits of being an entrepreneur, tax benefits?
Oh my gosh. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's just talk about write-offs. One of my favorite write-offs is the conferences and educational opportunities that I have to grow myself and to grow my business. Now, again, treating it like a business and not a hobby, you have to have the income in order to write off your expenses. And you don't want to just, spend, because if you do have all of these expenses, conferences and travel and, education materials and mileage and supplies, and you can go out and you can turn your dining room into an office and, set it all up with everything from Staples or another supply store like that. If you don't have the income coming in, and all you have are losses, then the IRS is going to say, well, you know what? This is not a business. This is a hobby. And you're not going to be able to have those losses. But, a few other ones, I mean, everything, postage, pens, anything that you can imagine, a portion, if you're working from home, a portion of your utilities, a portion of your internet, your cell phone. I mean, there are so many different expenses that you have on a daily basis that with a business, you can write off.
So a good piece of advice for any wannabe entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs out there is talk to a good tax accountant, because there are thousands of dollars of legitimate tax write-offs you can take if you're treating this like a business and not a hobby. And I know, for instance, I've been doing my business for 17 years now, and my first year I was shocked at how much I got back from the government, because I also had 3 young children at home, so I had child tax credit. But part of my mortgage, my taxes, utilities, my cell phone, my internet, if I used it for the business, it was considered a business. So moving on, talking about finances a little bit more, you had touched about don't underestimate your value. And I know that was one of Jamie's concerns too. That was one of the questions that she had put out. So Jamie, do you want to address don't underestimate your value?
Sure. So one of the things is, and Dana touched on this a little bit, that if you give yourself away for free, then it doesn't have a value attached to it. So one of the things that, and many of us here are service providers, and we want to serve the greater good and we want to help others. So it can be hard for us to properly price those services and what that means. And also being afraid that we might not be able to serve our communities appropriately if we're priced too high. So it's a matter of really getting some good consultation and doing some good market analysis to know what the value of your services really are, and being able to price yourself appropriately. Because if you think about when you get something for free, you're appreciative and you will take that value and use it. But if you're paying for something, you're going to have skin in the game, right? You're going to have something attached to that, where I am paying for the service, so I am putting value attached to that, and I'm going to be more engaged in that service because I'm paying for it. So it was through lessons that I learned that I was underpricing myself for a good amount of time, and it explained so many things when I realized how underpriced I was and the interaction I was having with clients based on that. And so I went through, had a coach for a while who helped me through this process and kind of get through some of those limiting beliefs on what I was actually worth charging. And so I had this big proposal I had to put out for a client. And so I put out a number and she said, okay, go higher, go higher, go higher. And she kept pushing me until I was at the point where I was like, okay, that's too much. And she says, okay, so let's go back down and really look at it. And the client accepted the proposal with no questions. And the value of my relationship with that client is seen through that. You can see the difference in the interaction with the client as well.
Interesting thought, interesting comment. I too am a coach, and I've coached people dirt cheap. And I find that those that I coach dirt cheap treat me almost like dirt. They don't respect the coaching. And I then grow resentful. So I've had to work through it too. It's a good point. if you're charging money, really have value to it. Don't underestimate your value. Let's move on to number 2. Know and write your goals. We talked a little bit about goal setting, about what success means in part 1, but let's talk more about it. How do you use all your modalities, the see it, say it, believe it, vision boards, goal boards? What's a good business practice with writing down your goals? Anybody want to start with this conversation? Go ahead, Laura.
I think the biggest thing to do is to have a target and to know what your target is. So what is your target when it comes to finances in your business? And then when are you going to get there by? And then having the steps of, well, how am I going to do that? And in any business, hopefully there's multiple streams of income able to come into the business. So understanding, okay, the in-person, the virtual, like where is it coming from? And there needs to be multiple streams so that there's no drought in the finances. And then also, what am I going to do with what is coming in? So talking about the financial mindset of not spend, I think it was Dana that said, don't spend everything that you get. Yeah, continue on as if, I don't know if anybody follows Grant Cardone, but he talks about the broke mindset. He says, stay broke, and store those finances up, because in order to go from A to B, you have to have some kind of savings going on. So when the money is coming in, what are you doing with that? So always know exactly what your target is, when you're supposed to get there, the multiple streams that you have coming in for that. And then again, what do you do with it? And have policies. I have policies. So when I personally am going to the next level, I say, okay, I got to put some strict policies in place. No more eating out for the next, 2, 4, 5, 6 months. Just policies that I follow. So this is what I can spend on. This is what I can't spend on. Canceling small little subscriptions that are really luxuries if we look at it. And I remember one time I took off, I was paying for YouTube Premium, and I took off and I started seeing YouTube ads again. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that this is what people had to deal with when they had to see the YouTube ads. I was like, this is incredibly crazy. And I did that for, I think, 6 months. And it was, I think it's only like $11.99, but just that discipline and following the policies on, okay, I'm going to cut off all these little things, and then all these little tiny things, they add up to thousands and thousands of dollars. And then you've got more money for you to put into your business for it to grow, and just having those things in place. What's my target? What's my deadline? Where's my multiple streams of income? And then what am I specifically doing with the money, the finances?
Thank you, Laura. Anybody want to comment on that or talk about vision boards or goal boards? Go ahead, Carrie.
So I believe it was Jamie who was saying that she writes down her 10 goals, 10 big, hairy, audacious goals every single day. I think that is an amazing, amazing practice. I do that myself. And I do give myself grace, like she said, to, if something changes along the way, to shift it or maybe take one off completely. But I write them out every single day, and I have one I'm focused on at a time. So I'm writing them all out every single day to keep them in the forefront of my mind. And then there is one that I am totally focused on making happen first. And that is the one that I'm taking a step on every single day, even if it's a tiny step. And I also will look at everything that I'm doing when I have my day set out in front of me. It's very easy to get caught up in things that aren't pushing the train forward. And that's the question I ask. Is this pushing me towards that one goal that I am focused on right now? If the answer is no, that activity comes off the plate, because you can get very caught up in things that aren't pushing you towards your goals at all. And the other thing I do is I have a manifestation board. Half of it is mine, half of it is my husband's. They're very different things on those boards, but we look at them every single day together and know why are we doing what we're doing. When I'm working and then he's managing the household, that keeps everything in focus on those goals that I'm writing out every day. So I really encourage you to get your 10 big, hairy, audacious goals and write them out every single day. And nothing is off the plate. don't say, well, I could never do that. That comes back to mindset. Let your mind go crazy with what your big, hairy, audacious goals are. That's why they're big and hairy and audacious, because they're out there. You can do it. You have to believe you can do it, and write them down. Jamie, I love that you brought that up. So thank you.
I think this is a perfect segue into our routine and our habits and the ability to say no. That if you know what your goals are, you can say no to anything that's going to distract you from those goals. So for those that know me, know that in January or February of every year, I don't take on any extra projects because I'm working on empowerment for March. Well, this year it turned into something different, but everybody who knows me now knows that I'm not going to throw anything at Gail during these 21 days. I'm not going to ask her to do anything above and beyond, because this is my goal, to have a successful 21 days of virtual empowerment and have it available for women 24/7, 365. So to know clearly your goals, to have it on your manifestation board or your goal board, but to develop it into a routine where you know what's important, what's not. And Jamie, you and I were talking about developing a routine. Do you want to talk to us about what you discovered with routines?
Yes, so I am a self-declared night owl, even though I have become a reluctant morning person. And it was really a painful process, to be honest, that last year I sat down and I was like, what do I need to do my mornings were crazy, the kids were going nuts, and it was just, I felt all frazzled before, I felt like I worked a full day before I even sat down at my desk getting the kids off in the morning. So I realized I have to wake up earlier. And as hard as that was to even fathom, I started in July, waking up at, I think I started waking up at 5:30. I think that's where I started. I started waking up at 5:30, which was a crazy town. And for about 3 months, I was angry every single morning when I woke up at 5:30, but I just kept doing it and doing it because I was like, you know what? I have to do this, because to be truthful, my days were better. The mornings were better, getting out of the door, getting things going and moving along by getting up earlier. And so I couldn't ignore that. It was like playing in the back of my mind, but I was mad. I was really mad about it. And then I guess in October, I started to not be so mad. I wouldn't say I liked it, but I wasn't as angry anymore. So then I just kept pushing. And then in November-ish or early December, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start, because I was getting up and going to the gym and just doing like the elliptical machine or whatever. And so then I decided to join a new gym, and they had 5 a.m. classes. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. So I started waking up at 4:30. And I was still, reluctantly doing it, but I was like, wow, I have all this time. And like, it was a process because I had to give up my nights a little bit, right? Because I was a night person. I like to stay up later and do things. So I had to give up a little bit of that to make sure I was getting enough sleep. So now where are we at? In beginning of April. And now everything that's going on has kind of moved things around and shifted times a little bit, but I am now a self-declared morning person. And I still, because if I had my choice, I would go back to being a night owl, but I also, the routine that I now have, I get up, working out at home now. I'm not going to the gym. And then after that, then I sit down and I do writing out my goals. And the one thing I wanted to say about the writing out the goals, I write them as if they've already happened. So I write them down saying, I have done this, or I am this. And I do the same thing where I focus on one thing at a time and then shift it as I achieve that. So then moving through that, and then the day starts, right? So then I've had this time to myself, and then the kids are up, and then I'm, with everything that's going on. So does that answer your question, Gail? I went a little long.
Oh my goodness, it does. And you've identified what works for you. So you have a cycle, you have a routine, you know daily what you're doing. So therefore you throw the routine out, and you'd be a little discombobulated for a bit, but you've got a routine that's working for you. Anybody else want to talk about their routine? Go ahead, Kelli.
First of all, I have to say, Jamie, I am just in awe that you're able to make that happen. And I've been an entrepreneur for a while now, and I have found that, yes, mornings are absolutely crazy. And I do get up earlier uh, most days before everybody else. And I, again, do something similar in that it's more of, for me, my time that I'm able to get things. That's when I do most of my reading. And that's when I do my social media catch up or whatever, reading emails. But then I always have time to focus on myself and do some reading, usually business wise. And I have been, because I have teenagers at home and things get kind of crazy, I have created my own schedule. And it doesn't look like anybody else's schedule. And I have come to terms with that, and that's okay. And there are times where I don't work at all until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I've got that time, and then I push the other things off into the evening once everything is quieted down with the family life. And I think that allowing yourself to do what works for you, and I love that morning, 4:30 in the morning. I love that works for you. But I think also you've crafted that. And if you're able to craft your own schedule and find what works for you when you're at your peak creativity or your peak productivity, and then hoarding that time and confining that time, and that's your work time, I think, works for me. And I think that could work for other people too.
Thank you, Kelli. And one more topic on this is I'd like to talk about finding time for self and stillness. And Joanne, I think that was your comment. Let's talk about developing a routine, but in the routine, you need time for yourself.
It's funny because I was thinking as Kelli was talking about how, and also about how Jamie was talking, we've all talked about how important it is to have your goals. And I don't know, it was years ago, probably 20 years ago. I don't know if it was Steve. I don't remember who it was, but he said, write down your goals and then forget them. There's some merit to that. Not that you shouldn't write down your goals every day, because I do. I look at my goals every day. But the stillness part is really important too. So we talked about meditation and prayer, but there's actually a time that we need to set aside to just be open to surrendering to what is available and what might be the next step. So it's almost taking your focus off your goals on a regular basis and getting still and refocusing on your why, but also on your purpose. So it's a routine, it's a practice. So every day before I get out of bed, I purposefully lay there and think about, okay, what is my goal today? But also, what is my purpose? What is my why? And that helps me get things moving, but it also helps me stay still. And then before I get going too deeply into my day, I do a devotional and I retouch who am I doing this all for? So I think that practice of getting quiet, even if it's 10 minutes, people talk about meditation and it needing to be a long period of time. It really doesn't. It just needs to be a moment of taking that breath and making sure you remember that you're okay, that you're not overwhelmed. In fact, you're going to conquer this. So you can move all that negative mindset out and you can move all that positive mindset in within just a few minutes of each day. And then I think scheduling not only the time for goal setting on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, but getting still on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. So we really need to look at it at the kind of the whole picture, both sides of the picture, getting still and setting goals. They have to go together. Otherwise you leave out part of your personhood. And we need to look at our whole person when we're looking at being an entrepreneur, because we want to bring our whole selves forward.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joanne, for that comment on that. And I think this is a perfect segue into the last section I'd like to just spend a few moments on is how do we skill up? How do we work on ourselves? How do we surround ourselves with the right people. What are some just comments, tips that you have for skilling up? Carrie, go ahead.
Journaling. Journaling is so important. It is the number one. In the morning, journaling what you're grateful for. Before you go to bed, journaling what you're grateful for. Taking some time every day, like Joanne said, to be quiet, be still, and just brain dump everything that's in your head onto paper, and being open to what's flowing out. There's so much hidden in there. And that's my number one tip. Journaling is so important. And when I work with women, they're so resistant until they start, and then they don't know how they lived without it. So take some time every day to journal. You won't regret it.
Thank you. Go ahead, Laura.
I love that she just mentioned the journaling. I actually have a box where every day I write down, whether it's the I ams or I haves or just anything that I feel like writing down. And I put the date on it. I fold it up. I write the same date, but the following year. I put it in a box called Surprise Yourself. And so every day the next year later on that date, I get to pull it out. And a lot of times when I pull it out and read it, I'm like, oh, hey, that's already happened. And what Joanne was talking about a moment ago, I touched on moving from that manifester, which is the goal setting, into surrendering, asking those empowering questions in the morning. And I have my routine is when I first wake up, I do conscious breathing. 5 minutes of simple breath work, nothing like, DMT releasing or anything like that. Just 5 minutes, still laying in bed. Maybe my eyes aren't even open yet, but consciously breathing. And then also the giving and receiving, just like fulfilling that cycle. I give thanks. That's the first thing that I do in the mornings. I give thanks, I give gratitude, and I do my visualizations, my 20-minute meditation. I do my journaling. I do all of these things before I even leave my bedroom in the morning. And then, everything else is just like the icing on the cake, because I've already filled my own cup. And so whoever I talk to, whoever I touch is already going to be blessed from that. And it's just a ripple effect of being able to just use myself as the vehicle to share all these things with people in the world.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Joanne, did you have something else you wanted to share?
The practice of writing things down, whether it's a journal, whether it's a jar, a box, or it can springboard you forward into your next self or your next year. So if you have a way of reviewing that when you're looking at your goals for your next year, it can make a huge difference when you're setting up your vision board, or I like to call it a vision wheel, or whatever. And it's both your personal goals, but also your business goals. So remember, when you're setting all that together, that it's an integrate. We need to be integrating ourselves. So that's really important to keep in mind. That so as we're going through this, as we are going, we need to be thinking about not just what we're doing now, because that's what's most important right now, but also write it down so that you have some touchstones to follow to grow forward with. It's the same with finances. It's the same. It's consistent if you just write it down, and you can see your progress, and that's what makes the difference sometimes when you're having a rough patch.
So this is wonderful. So I'm hearing everybody saying, write it down, write it down, write it down. So if anything, ladies who are watching this, write it down as you want to skill up, as you're entering the day, as you're grateful for different things, write it down. And I'm just going to quickly share the last two, and then we're going to call it a day. But find a mentor and surround yourself with the right people. I hope this has really encouraged you, and we have 21 days of great presentations like this. But find yourself a mentor and surround yourself with the right positive people, and be willing to step out of your comfort zone, because that's where true growth is going to happen. And I hope that this is helping you step out of your comfort zone, but know that we're here to support you. So on that note, I thank all of my guests today. You have been amazing, and have a blessed day. Thank you.